Hey everyone, Miss Dempsey here. Wow, it's been a while since I've done one of these videos. So, this racing video focuses on one of the Nations Cup races over at Lago Maggiore West, and it's pretty much a F51 make. Since this track asks for a bit of speed, the F50 supplies that, and even though it's a bit mediocre on the turns, it doesn't really matter because the turns are so close to each other. We do have a couple SFRs, and we have another F50, and let's go on over to the next car, which is another F50. So you get the point. F51 make, and we have a meme car of a Alpine A110. Interesting choice. And last but not least, another F50. So what car am I with? Yeah, I'm with the Supra because I am a stubborn son of a gun. I did not want to use the F50. This race was pretty much another excuse for me to use the Supra since I like this car too much. Thank you, Supra Cup. And let's get this started. So with this race being pretty much an F51 make, along with 3 other cars that are, well actually 4 other cars that are not the F50, the question for this video is how many F50s can I hold off? So right now we have 3 F50s in the front, we have a Porsche behind us, and then there's the 2 SFRs and the Alpine, but let's not worry about those cars for now. When it comes to the Supra and this track, it can barely keep up with the F50s as they accelerate a little bit faster than this car. And while it can catch up to these cars on the turns, they are very few and far between, and with these turns being pretty tight, it doesn't really open an opportunity for the Supra to make a move on the F50s. And that's another thing I have to be careful about around here because these cars have to take these turns a little bit slower. I don't want to end up punting them into Pluto because then they'll get pretty mad at me and then I'll probably end up getting kicked out of the team. Speaking of teams, I recently joined one called Phoenix Esports, which is symbolized by PHX on my name, and it's a nice, lovely little group full of people who are fast and faster. Some of these guys are crazy fast, and I hope I can be like them one day. But going back to the video, first, second, and third place are engaging in a nice, lovely little battle, and I'm trying to squeeze in, but because of how I guess slow the Supra's acceleration is, I can't really catch up to them. And by the time we approach that last turn that we just passed, these cars are already on their way out. And even if I get a perfect exit, these cars, they have that extra little oomph to slowly start to build a gap on me. And it doesn't help that they're getting slipstream off of each other, so they're going even faster. So we'll skip on over to the start of lap 3, and it makes me really happy how I'm still hanging out behind these 3 cars even though I'm not in the best car. So we're going to see if we can somehow pressure at least one of these cars to force a big mistake so I can squeeze my way into podium. So it starts to work, but I start to drag myself into the mistake that I'm trying to make them to make, and then I get too excited and I bring myself onto the grass. So now I have a terrible exit. The car is not accelerating that fast at all, and I can feel the cars behind me starting to breathe down my neck. And as this Porsche starts to pass me, and I think this car ended up being one of the sleeper picks because this car ended up doing pretty decent. You'll see how it does throughout the video. But the thing is that I don't quite know how it does compared to that of the F50. Is it just as fast? And right now it looks like it is. But how does it handle in the turns? I know this car was hanging out behind me for quite a while, but because I was in a nice little line behind third, second, and first place, they couldn't really make a move on me. So now that they're ahead and that there's a small gap ahead of them, we can really get a good idea of how this car performs. And it seems like it's doing okay on these turns, but we do have an idea of how it does in terms of acceleration and speed, and it's a bit closer matched to that of the F50. And as we try to catch up to them, it's not really going to happen, so now we basically have another F50. It's just dressed up as a Porsche. So I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of the curves because the track limits here are very lax for some weird reason. But I ended up taking a bit too much advantage of the curves and slightly go off track and give myself a half a second penalty. So now things aren't really going my way. Not really too happy about how I'm doing here, but we're still at the very start of the race, or somewhat in the start of the race. So we can still definitely make some good progress, or at least reclaim some of that progress. So because we served the penalty, went much slower, and the F50 right here ended up getting a free pass on me. So he's going to go ahead and pass us without really any effort. We're going to go ahead and hang out right behind him and see if we can pressure him into a mistake, or me being me, or the Supra being the Supra, pressure itself into a mistake, because let's face it, it happens. But either way, I'm mostly just in this race just to have some fun, just to use the Supra once again, even though it doesn't have a great advantage here. So now we're on lap 6, and we're hanging out right behind the same F50 that passed us a couple laps ago. The podium people are way ahead of us, and the Porsche is still just ahead right here, so we can definitely try to see if we can still retake 4th place. The Porsche goes a little bit wide, probably assuming that the F50 was going to try to make a move, but nothing really happens. But because the F50 did go a bit slower, I'm going to see if I can try to retake 5th place, but unfortunately this car just doesn't have the oomph or the punch to go faster than the F50 and initiate an overtake. Another problem that this car has is that it's a bit front heavy, so the front tires wear out a bit faster. And in this race, I think I had the brake balance at +2 or +3, so 2 or 3 points to the rear, just to try to make the tire wear a bit more even. But the tire wear on the F50 is much better, so they can go up to lap 16 before they had to switch the tires out for the sports hard tires, which happens to be the required tires. As for the Porsche, I actually don't know, because this was the first time I saw this car in a race at all, not even in a practice race. So it's just interesting to see a completely different car enter a race and actually do pretty decent as it is doing right now. So as we saw earlier, the Ferrari tried to initiate an overtake, but nothing really came out of it over at the big bank turn. I'm going to go ahead and go over to the side because I don't want to punt the Ferrari, as the Ferrari ends up making a great move, almost ends up hitting the Porsche, but ends up making a nice clean move. So well done on him, and he is now in 4th place, and I'm just still sitting here just grabbing the popcorn because I'm just watching all these battles happen right in front of me. But the Porsche is just not going to have it, so they're going to battle it out again, especially as we approach the big banky boy, as Super GT calls it, and tries to go on the inside. Some brakes are locking, goes on the inside, and now they're going on a nice little duel. I'm going to try to squeeze my way in, so now we're going 3 wide for just a moment, and I can't really do much just because, once again, this car does not have the oomph to even really do anything, at least on the parts where you really need the acceleration. Now, here's the thing. I didn't realize until here how many F50s were hanging out right behind us, as there's a little bumping going on, but somehow the penalty system isn't triggered. And this is a penalty system that is super aggressive. Nothing ended up happening, and we're in a nice little battle with the Porsche, but once again, for like the millionth time, there's no power, and one F50 is trying to sneak his way around and ends up passing me. Another F50 sneaking his way through, and I'm just going to go ahead and bring myself back into the slipstream because I don't want any more F50s to pass me. I've already let 3 pass me, and I'm already failing at this game that I made up called How Many F50s Can I Fend Off? And it's a little frustrating just because I'm pretty much a sitting duck for this entire race. But with these 4 in front bunched up, we're going to see if anything happens as a Porsche swerves on over, ends up going wide and hits the wall. and the F50 up in front ends up going a bit wide, so we're going to see if we could try to pass the Porsche, trying to squeeze our way in, but he ends up blocking it. Two F50s end up in a collision. The red Ferrari ends up bumping into the Porsche, and I'm going to see if we could try to squeeze my way in, but he's just defending like crazy, isn't going to let me in, shuts the door on me. You do not get to enter. Thank you. Have a good day. And of course I end up sliding over here because I end up touching the dirt because I'm too excited. I want to take part in this battle, but no one's letting me in. No one is answering the door. And I'm just over here in the back, still on 8th place, getting a little frustrated just because I couldn't even take advantage of this and make up any positions. Now, interestingly, when I was in the practice race for, well, the Supra, I had to pit a bit earlier, so actually I had to pit at lap 9 because the front tires were pretty worn out, but because I adjusted the brake balance and changed my braking, or was a bit softer on my brakes on the hard braking zones, I was able to make the tires last just a little bit longer. And as you see here, I'm on lap 11. The tires, well, they're starting to show their signs of wear, so I'll have to think about pitting soon. Now, we did see one of the F50s pit, so we can take this time to try and see if we can try to squeeze out any time. So when I go into the pit stop, the one that went to the pit stop earlier hopefully doesn't end up passing me, but with the tires being pretty worn out, there's a good chance he's going to end up right in front of me once I exit the pit stop. As the red Ferrari ends up bumping into the Porsche, but nothing really ever comes out of it. Flashes his emergency lights as a way of saying I'm sorry. He can say I'm sorry to me by letting me pass because, well, he passed me. That's not nice of him. So I'm going to try to see if I can get a little bit closer, but because the tires are worn, I end up going a little bit wide and end up grazing against the wall. So now they're going a bit farther away from me. And yeah, so this is now a good time to go into the pit stop. Or at least that's what I think here in 2020. But because we're talking about me being stubborn and trying to see how long I can make these tires last before I have to go onto the less grippy sports hard tires, I'm going to go ahead and stay out for another lap because why not? So we have another F50 enter the pit stop. So now we're in 6th place and we have to try to at least make up some time lost. We have to try to at least get a decent time before we have to enter the pit stop and exit the pit stop in front of the red Ferrari and the black Ferrari that pitted earlier in this video and, well, in the race obviously. So now it is time to enter the pit stop and we're going to change on over to sports hard tires to fulfill the tire requirement. And the question is, can we exit in front of the red and black Ferraris? So we're going to change the tires, out we go, and they end up exiting right ahead and besides us. And as I end up getting unghosted, we end up getting a little bit friendly, but they have the inside line, so there's not really much I can do but hang out right behind them. And unfortunately, this little plan of mine didn't really work out the way I wanted to. But we still have a couple laps left, so it definitely is possible to make something work, make something happen, and possibly end up recovering a couple positions. As a car is about to exit the pit stop, which car is it? It actually ends up being the Porsche, and he ends up exiting right in between the red and black Ferrari, and we get a little bit friendly over here, and I'm trying to see if I can try to squeeze my way in, but nothing's going to happen once again, just like in the start of the race. So I'm going to end up hanging out behind these group of cars once again. So let's go on over to the end of lap 15, and as you see, the red Ferrari in the very front ends up going to the pit stop for some interesting reason, and I think that reason is that he was running a 2-stint strategy, so that way he could only be on the sports hard tires for 2 laps. But either way, we're now in 7th place, we made up a position. 4th place just exited the pit stop, and we're all bunched up together, getting to know each other. But here's the thing, we are getting to the end of the race. I need to make a move soon, and I'm also hoping that these guys just end up crashing into each other so I can easily retake 4th place. As we end up getting a pretty good exit over here, and I'm going to go ahead and get side to side with the F50, I want to retake 6th place. Is it possible? I'm trying to go as fast as I can, giving the most power as I can. And we're still side to side, but unfortunately I have to kind of just back out a little bit. But no, we're still side to side, but he's slowly pulling away from me. So I'm just going to go ahead and give him the racing line because, well, we still have 4th place. He's still right up ahead. So we can definitely make something happen together. Or not, because they could still be very far away, too far to even make something happen. So I'm going to go ahead and get the slipstream, and I'm going to just go for it. He goes on the inside, I'm going to go on the outside, try to outbrake him, get a nice clean pass, but unfortunately I ended up braking a bit too late. The car slides around and he ends up retaking 6th place, and now he knows I'm going to do whatever I can to try to overtake him, and we don't have much time left. Pretty much 5th and 4th place, unless they end up crashing into each other, they're going to be out of our reach. So now it's a battle for 6th place, and as I end up getting a bad exit, he ends up pulling away just a little bit more, and there's still time. I can try to get a perfect entry and exit from the big banky boy. So we're going to go ahead and see what happens. Start to brake before the digital flag on the left, go for a smooth entry, smooth exit, try to get on the power as soon as I can. And at this point I'm just praying that we can definitely make something happen. Luckily there's no one behind us, so there's no battle that I need to be worried about. As the Ferrari in 5th place ends up going pretty wide, ends up hitting the wall. Now's my chance. It's now or never. I'm going to go ahead and retake 6th place, and I'm going to defend the heck out of it. No, you did not get to pass. I am slamming the door shut on you. Have a good day. Good day, sir. So we're going to see if we can try to retake 5th place if they make a catastrophic mistake, but they're pulling away from us, so even if they make a small mistake, it's not going to be enough for us to pass him. And I'm also trying not to bend this because, well, there is an angry Ferrari that is hanging out right behind me. And we're going to go ahead and cross the finish line in 6th place. Started in 4th, went back 2 positions, but either way, I think this is a fantastic result for our car that had a lot of disadvantages in this race. So at the end of the day, this cute little Supra was able to fend off 11 Ferrari F50s, because, and I say 11 because there is also 2 SFRs and an A110 that were behind us, so that brings it down to 11. And yeah, that is pretty much it for this video. But before I go, I just want to say it has been an amazing year doing these Gran Turismo videos for you all, and I really want to thank you all for the amazing support this past year. And I would also like to thank Team Phoenix Esports for bringing me into their team. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and actually sign off now. So this is Mr. MCA wishing you an awesome 2020, and I'll see you in the next video.